Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Just Another Kill Team podcast, connecting kill team communities across the globe. If you're passionate about the tactical skirmish game that brings together strategy, lore, and creativity, you are in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay updated with our latest episodes. If you want to support the show, check out our Patreon. Your support means a lot to us. Follow us by using the social media links in the podcast description for all the latest news, and be sure to leave a review to let us know what you think. Thanks for tuning in. Here's today's episode. Dueler was never that good.
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, listen, this is
start with that
coming
because
from...
we're here bringing Matt on to talk about Goremongers, and Goremongers were kept bound by Dueler, right? That's at least that's the narrative the world has sold us. But Jason's here to tell us why Dueler actually was not that good against Goremongers.
Dueler was not that good. I mean, it was good against Goremongers, but not nearly as good as people thought, because you really only wanted it on your power sword sergeant, and then with chain swords, it was like, it's nice sometimes, but a bunch of the times you just don't roll a crit, or you're gonna kill whatever you're fighting anyways, or they're gonna kill you anyways, and it just doesn't matter. So it's it matters 1 in 7. You don't want to be doing that many fights per game. Because even if you're running all assault and intercessors, you just run around and you shoot everyone, and then when they fight you, you never parry even when you can. You just strike, and then you shoot them some more. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, full agreed. I always saw Dueler as a really good tech choice against teams that would have 3 to 4 attacks and wanted to be melee specialists. Basically a lot of Blades of Cain, elves, that sort of ilk. You could basically make them a little more afraid to charge in and fight you, because it's you will probably get 3 hits. I can maybe parry out 2 of them, so you'll dink me for 4, and then I'll kill you. It's more of a sort of deterrent against that sort of stuff. I think that maybe the worry about Dueler for Goremongers was a little bit overblown. But I do think if you're running a Goremonger into an Assault Intercessor with Dueler up, you've probably made a mistake already anyways. That's you don't want to be in that situation. Dueler is sort of just icing on the cake for the AOD player at that point.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, what is the high level strategy for going into this? We're kind of diving right into the deep end here.
We're jumping ahead a little bit because we'll eventually get to the first impressions. But we can always do a little bit off the beaten path for this clearly well-defined Learn to Master series we've been doing.
Look, so well-defined.
I mean, I'm happy to wax poetic about how elites aren't actually that tough to beat with Goremongers. I think I'm in the minority opinion on that one.
Is this pre or post Plague Marine nerf though?
This is pre Plague Marine nerf. I actually haven't played against Plague Marines since the nerf, because everybody I know who played them just dropped them immediately, which is just so dispiriting.
Is it one of those situations you think where it's higher tech, where there was a nerf but it wasn't a big enough nerf, but people just don't want to play them right now?
I think that's exactly
on another side tangent, because we love triple tangenting.
I was gonna say I need to just start making a little flow chart for myself. I think as Travis may well know, I am a big fan of, actually, this team is not that bad. You just need to figure out how to play them. I've been that guy for literal years at this point. I think Plague Marines are capital NTB not that bad, but man, the nerfs do hurt a lot. You have to play a very different game now with them.
Plague Marines are one of those teams where the way that you were playing versus the way you have to play now is very distinct, and because you notice it all the time, you're gonna, even if it's not actually that big of a nerf as far as grand strategy goes, because you can still have all the poison, you can still get in the way, you still have your heal. It can still be annoying because it's there. But as far as Goremongers go, you think that Goremongers never really had that much of a problem with against Astartes, even though, we've had people on here who've talked about how Space Marines are kind of hard.
I mean, it is definitely one of the tougher matchups that you can have. But I think it's far from unwinnable. I think there are plenty of opportunities for Goremongers to get ahead. Mostly it's trying to set up asymmetric charges, which I have spent enough time trying to figure out like the best way to make Plague Marines work, that I've been on the receiving end of like being the little brother whose older brother is like holding a ball above their head that they just can't reach. It's like, all right, I can move and dash and shoot, and that's effectively a 10-inch threat range. So if you are 10.1 inches away from me, I'm just kind of like scrambling, trying to like jump on my toes and get it. And then I just get wheeled around in one shot by a Corsair blaster or a Nemclaw Melta or something of that nature. Whereas Goremongers kind of flip the script on that. I am pretty sure they are on a single operative basis one of the fastest teams in the game, with like maybe losing out a little bit to wild things like Geist Skull on Navis Breachers. But beyond that, the amount of like threat projection that they can put out while being relatively safe themselves is pretty nuts, and you can leverage that against elites pretty easily.
Yeah.
Was that like a first impressions of the Goremongers, or was this kind of after you'd played a little bit?
No, this was after I had played them a little bit. I went into them thinking that they were a team that really wanted to just get into melee as soon as possible. I'm just going to charge in with the full Gore tank, and I'm going to fight with Relentless. Isn't that cute? And I'm going to take a bunch of damage, chunk down my opponent, and then they'll kill me on their activations. And when I first started playing them, it felt like it was just a very zippy melee team that didn't want to get shot. And as I played with them more and more, I started to notice that they had that for sure, but that they also had a lot of different interesting combos and also unexpected power pieces that really jumped out at me as like the ideal tool for certain jobs. So if you got to kill a Marine, there's a thing you do for that. If you need to handle a team that out activates you, but you want to stay ahead on tempo, there's a strategy for that. Like there are all these sort of like different things that you can do that isn't just running it down mid with like your hands above your head screaming.
Yeah. It's my first impression actually was that of all the teams I've been playing lately, they're the cagiest. Because a lot of the power that comes from the super aggressive playstyle that I do is like board threat, like how much of the shooting, and Goremongers is not that. So I was like, man, I gotta learn how to lurk and like get to the mid board safely. And then I think my first impression was like on turn 3 is when you explode and you spend for all 4 command points and just like go nuts. Which I also learned necessarily, but my first impression was lurk until turn 3.
Yeah, I think as much as I'd like to believe my way is the only way, there's plenty of really good ways. I know there are a lot of people who do very well with a very cagey playstyle. I'm not one of them. If I can do shots on turning point 1, I'm going to do that. And if it means that I need to do a scout dash and then boost my leader to 3 APL, have him empty out, refill, and get 8 inches of movement so that I can get that close and just barrel stuff somebody and shoot them with an Icon of Corn, I will do that turning point 1. I've more often than not killed a Marine, not with that one thing, but with a bit of a back half of a combo on TP2. So you can get some really solid aggression out early. And this team, I've seen the most success with it in trying not to play a patient game, but trying as hard as possible to play very aggressively, and trying to not wait to get shot, not wait for a 3 APL play, but instead like spending the blood on offensive abilities and using that to try to get more gore tanks that I can then snowball better. I think waiting for things to happen leads to this team slowing down a little too much for my taste.
I fully agree with that.
So was that okay? So first impressions of the team when the rules were first out, were you at the spot where you were going to play? You said that you were going to play them super aggressively. Were there certain operatives or certain ploys that you felt like were going to drive a lot of that decision making in the game that you ended up after those first couple games not really using all that much, or was it more? The Skull Taker's obviously good. The leader is obviously really good with his Rosary effect or just a scratch effect. Being able to run up and get shoot first with your move dash shoot, and then not die on a counteract shoot, and then be able to counteract and go kill someone. Was that what you were focusing on? What changed over your first couple of games for both of you? Because both of you have been playing Goremongers a little bit on and off, even though, Matt, it sounds like you might be noodling around with some other teams in the background.
Oh, I like to dabble. But I think, at least for me, and Jason, I'd love to hear your thoughts too. For me, though, before Goremongers came out, I'd been playing Plague Marines, which is a lovely 5-inch move, 7-inch charge team. And then I was also playing Rekka Crew, and I had it in my head that I think it's called heavy plating, which gives you an extra wound, but it makes you slower. That was the way to go. So I went from having a 5-inch move to having a 7-inch move and being able to maybe boost that to 8 inches. So all of a sudden I go from thinking I need to be basically on top of things in order to interact with them in melee to I play a game or two with Goremongers. It's like, oh, I can charge things from way far away. I can just missile the backline from here. What if I'm not charging? What if I'm moving and dashing? What if I'm setting up a ladder so I can get up and then jump over this thing? And I think the difference between my first game and my third game was realizing just how much movement they had and just how quickly they could get where they wanted to go if they really gassed it in.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely like I said, at first I thought I should play them cagey, and then I had a couple of games of trying to lurk and but I was like, I don't love this. What happens if I all gas? And then I did a couple where I even just full send. I was just you're being way too patient for me, and I'm not gonna wait you out. I'm just going to flip to engage and then move dash and push a button, and I'm just standing out in the open. And I'm whatever. If everyone does it, it's right. And that actually also kind of worked. But like you said, with how much mobility, it's insane how often you can just touch things. So one of the other things that I've kind of been thinking about and further developing with additional games is this concept of a front line that pushes really aggressively, first one to strike, because I've got someone that is 4 inches behind them even, and they're 10.5 inches away from an enemy, and then you just your back line is charging people, and now they can't even threaten your front line, and then your front line can hit even deeper, and if you sequence it right, it makes it easier the enemy with all 8 operatives at once, and it's insanity.
Yeah, I fully get where you're coming from, and what can make that nice too is if you have a team like Goremongers that can survive single shots basically 100% of the time, and are really good at eating charges. They've got a lot of melee dice. It's pretty reasonable. They can have a lot of melee damage. You can then have that secondary wave also just repel the first wave. So if you've got an assault intercessor who's charging in, they run into an aspirant and they fight it. And let's say for the sake of argument, they don't kill it.
It's not that hard. 5 attacks on 3s going into 4 attacks on 3s with half damage once is probably not likely to kill a 10 wound model.
Especially if they're going to waste their time blocking you out. That's a waste of time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If they're going to use one of the 3 strikes that they require to get a kill off parrying, then they're basically just not going to get there. But if they get stuck in melee, then that second wave that you're describing, Jason, can then charge in, and now they're hitting on 2s. They could even do a rake to take whatever break points were left over from that fight and make it even more beneficial. So maybe you go from needing 2 strikes to 1 strike, or 3 strikes to 2 strikes, what have you. You can really tilt a lot of math that way. And you still have your original operative that might still be alive, can heal, and still do whatever it needs to do.
Yeah, definitely a faction that can take a lot more punishment than it looks like it can on 10 wounds, right? Because you can never get shot out of one activation. And you're not getting out activated that hard at this point in the game because the Horde teams you've got tools against because you've got aspirants if you really want to. You basically always two-shot them. And against the elves, you're only getting out activated by one operative. So they're not really getting a ton of counteract value, or like you're not getting a ton of counteract in either direction. So they got to spend 2 activations. If they got to spend 2 activations and they're moving up to shoot you, you can always get someone to defend the front line in the back line.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that Goremongers also have Gorthirst, this firefight ploy that lets them basically swap from conceal to engage for the purposes of counteract. So if somebody wildly out activates you and you've done your 8, they've done 8, and they're sending their 9th one towards you, and they've got like 3 more to go or something wild like that, you can just Gorthirst right away and counteract right away. So at most, they normally have a window of like 1 safe activation, which, as we established, you almost certainly will not kill by shooting, and you're probably not going to win in melee either. So it creates a pretty difficult shell to break, and then you get these, 10-inch threat range charges piling in after that. So it can be quite the puzzle to unpick.
Okay, so it sounds like on first impressions, you're going to run Screaming at them as one solid line. It sounds like after you guys have both played a little bit, Jason tried a little bit of cagey stuff. Matt, you tried a little bit of shooting stuff, it sounds like. And now you've kind of landed on this theory, I think kind of what like Hernkin Jaeger need to do, where every single frontline operative has a dude in the back that's his buddy that's like 5 inches away from him. Because whatever your opponent does, you can always back up with the buddy, and then the guy who got hit first can now be free, heal up, and then charge someone else to go do something else. Whereas on Hernkin Jaeger, you've got a single dude 6 inches away from everyone else at every single frontline spot. So the frontline guy can go do the melee attacks with the plasma eyes while the other guy in the back overwatches and shoots you as you go into melee. So that's kind of how Hernkin Jaeger work. It sounds like that's how Goremongers are working. And this is basically like 2 lines of defense where the back line is actually really ostensibly there just to defend the front line. And the front line is just pretending to aggress on your opponent.
Yeah. I think that's a play style that works really well for Goremongers. Hernkin, I would imagine, although I don't have a lot of experience with them.
They don't push
I know
up as much. They do defend the front line, I think, with that kind of strategy.
Yeah. I would imagine Exaction does really well with that. Inquisition can do pretty well with that by setting up a bunker with the -1 attack dice, skull and leader on them. And also, you didn't hear from me, but Hunterclade can do that pretty well too.
Hunterclade got a lot of use out of that just because you have the 6-inch defensive bubble of no rerolls.
Yeah.
So back in the day, your Ruststalkers were sit in front, go to your opponent, and if they go to charge and shoot your Ruststalkers, your no reroll bubbles is I think 4 inches away from your front line, which basically stops the move up within 2 and shoot.
If you have Vanguards as like that front wave, you can also put out their Rad Saturation, which is sort of like an injury aura. That the leader does a -1 attack dice. If you have Bulwark Imperative up and Debilitating Irradiation also up, that's functionally -2 to their normal damage as well. So you've got on like the full tilt, it's -1 attack dice, -2 normal damage, and no rerolls, which is
and then after your opponents
nasty.
go to interact with you, you can switch on your Sicarian Ruststalkers extra inch and just blitz someone. Sounds very similar. Yep. I guess, I suspect Vespid and Gellerpox also use similar ideas where you've got your front line that's really just a distraction matrix, and then your back line is actually doing most of the work on defense. So you leave your opponent not very satisfying frontline targets, or, potentially theoretically very satisfying frontline targets. But on Goremongers, you do have the benefit of Khorne protects you and says you only take 8 damage.
Yeah. So it's an incredible asset to just know that like there is almost nothing that will kill you in 1 activation, and you will almost always have a chance to respond.
Twice.
Yeah, but we kill them before they kill us. That's the plan. That's the Khorne way.
That is the plan. All right, so these are your first couple evaluations after playing a couple games, going to a couple tournaments. So walk us through the first tournament, or maybe the first sequential set of games, because not everything has to be a tournament. Sometimes it's just you've played like 4 games in a row, and as you play each game, you learn a little bit more each time. So walk us through a little bit about your first runs with them.
Yeah, I've taken these guys to plenty of like local events. We've had local leagues that I've been playing them in, and I'm also happy to play against like really talented people online as well. And in all of those, I've gone from kind of thinking of them as melee aggressive pieces to really trying to leverage the movement, get a lot of shooting out of them. I did also bring them to a really great tournament in New England a couple weeks ago, Ironweld, which was run by Will. It was amazing. New England folks are awesome, and did pretty okay there with them. And really, I think what ended up being the most successful for me, because I played a lot of elites over the course of that period of time, was basically setting up alpha strikes, or doing a lot of damage at the end of TP1 and beginning of TP2 to either kill like 1 to 2 Marines, which just basically sets the tone for the rest of the game. And it started off by just seeing like my leader shooting and doing like a lot of really consistent damage, and then trying to pivot that into, well, what if I just did this every game? Like, what if I made my leader a centerpiece of Turning Point 1? And there are some versions of counterplay, but most people don't expect it, and it can completely turn a game on its head at the end of the first turning point when people think they're just setting up.
Love that so much.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good, because I feel like, we've had a lot of guests on here over a long period of time, Alexa and a couple other people talking about alpha strikes. So walk us through the alpha strike at some of these tournaments from the Goremongers, what their distances are, what you're setting up, and how many you could theoretically get, just to kind of walk anyone who's interested in Goremongers or hasn't really thought about it, what these alpha, or I guess more obviously a beta strike would look like, as people are kind of sleepwalking through Turning Point 1, not thinking about how safe they need to be against ranges.
Yeah, definitely. I think it first depends on what your matchup is. On a Space Marine is going to work differently than an Inquisitorial agent, but the general lilt of it is you pick somebody. Typically, it's going to be your Inciter or your Blood Herald, your leader. You'll scout dash them up 3 inches. A lot of boards will have a relatively safe place for you to be, roughly 3 inches in front of where you are. And then from there, if you're playing against Marines, you wait 6 to 7 activations, and then last activation, you will send your operative up with a move and a dash. With Inciter, this is easy because they can do the dash and spray, kind of like a Daka Boy Daka dash. And it's easy to do with your leader as well, because your leader, the first time they empty their blood tank, it refills back up to half. So you can effectively just be 3 APL for not a lot of cost. If you really need the extra oomph, you can give either your leader or Inciter another inch by actually spending the Gore Tank charge to get that extra inch. And then you have a 2-inch cover break. So what I've described so far is a 3-inch scout dash, a 3-inch regular dash, a 7 to 8-inch move, and then a 2-inch cover break, which is like a 15 to 16-inch threat range from the edge of your deployment zone, which, you're not exactly traveling in straight lines. You're probably going to run through a door at some point. So it's a little less than that. But if anybody goes more than like around 4-ish, 5-ish inches out of their deployment, you can probably get them. If it's your leader, you run in, you shoot them. If it's a Space Marine, you get 4 dice hitting on 2s, 4/4. You're probably going to dink them for like 4 to 8 damage. Then start of Turning Point 2, no matter who wins initiative, you can use Hunt for Blood and Rake when you use Hunt for Blood, doing probably another 2 damage. So they've taken maybe like 6 to 10 damage. The Marine's at 4 health, and you've won initiative. You tap them 1 time with melee, and you've killed a Marine. Then you can shoot another one, charge them, and rake them again. You can just kind of keep the train running. If you didn't win initiative, and this Marine's at, like 8 health, 4 health, something like that, they have to choose between either fighting your leader, who will probably need about 4 hits in melee to die to a chainsword, between Gory Tenacity, Impending Apotheosis, and then just an 11 wound pool, or falling back for 2 APL and shooting 1 time, which is guaranteed to not kill you. So if they go first, then they will not be able to kill you, and then you just kill them on your own activation. So you can put people into very tough situations very quickly. You can also do this with the Inciter. The damage potential is a lot less, but
It's also a lot less safe on the second turn too, because you don't have the free blood, right? Because you're using the blood up and then you're empty when you go in to touch your opponent. Whereas your Blood Herald, you're pretty much always going to have 1 tank, and then at the beginning of the next turn, you'll probably always have at least 1 tank, because you can always use 1, juice yourself back up, and keep going. It's just a big risk where if anything goes wrong and your opponent catches you or drags you out, now your Blood Herald is stuck in the middle, right?
Sure. And I tend to be of the opinion that if the Blood Herald if one of my 8 operatives, as powerful as he is, kills 1 Marine, attracts the attention of like 2 to 3 more, and maybe even like wounds another Marine, he's done his job. Everybody else can take it from there. So it's sad to see a Blood Herald die, but that's just how Khorne wants it.
Yeah.
The best part about this entire conversation on Angels of Death specifically is Jason's been out here playing mobile for the last, I don't know how many months. So Jason would welcome this strategy gladly, because that Marine would then switch to mobile, or they should switch to mobile, if they see the strategy, and they fall back for 1 and then just blast your Blood Herald into oblivion. That would be the counterplay. Yes. But has that happened in any of your practice games?
So I also have been playing Angels of Death a little bit, and I know well enough that you're just 1 adaptive tactic swapped to mobile away from getting double shot to oblivion. So do this at your own risk. You are banking on winning initiative TP2 if you do this. Or maybe you're cool with your opponent just blowing a CP to turn their secondary tactic into mobile. Maybe you think that's a good enough trade. I probably wouldn't. I probably would just try to chill out a little bit, but hey, you do you. However aggressive you want to be, I have typically noticed with this team, I have not lost any games from playing too defensive, I have not lost any games from playing too aggressively. I've only lost games from playing too defensively. And anytime I've presented with a offensive verb, like charging, fighting, shooting, counteracting, whatever, if I take it, I tend to be in a better board state. So I'm always trying to seek out ways to set that up rather than trying to have that be the last resort.
All right, that's actually a great point on trying to learn how to synthesize a Goremonger game plan. This is after you've played a tournament, couple games, you've had your first impressions, you've changed over. Walk us through a game where you tried to play a little bit more defensively, and talk us through how you got punished in that, so that if anyone is trying to play that, they can know that those are the stopgaps. And Jason, you can chime in here too, obviously, because you tried to play a little bit defensively with them too, holding all the way until turn 3 so that you could burn every single ploy simultaneously while having 4 operatives at full blood tank. Walk us through the pitfalls of playing a more defensively oriented Goremonger.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had seen a lot of people talk about this team online and talk about how they were struggling with elites, and that a lot of people had said they'd seen a lot of success with plant beacons and a more defensive, you just 3 APL, run out, plant a beacon, then dash back. You just try to stay out of the way of elites and let them just kind of just play keep away. So I tried that. And I've no doubt that it works well for people. It does not work well for me. I kept trying to run up, plant a beacon, and then get out of there. And I maxed plant beacons, and I got 9 points in the game, and they got close to max because I was out of blood, because I was spending it all on trying to heal up or get to 3 APL. I didn't really have any gas left when it actually came time for fighting. So in kind of experimenting with that, we don't need to call it. In sort of experimenting with that a little bit, I started tinkering around a bit more with how to better like stage to try to set up for plant beacons. And as I was setting up for plant beacons, I was realizing that I was setting up for a game plan that would actually be better served by a different tac op. So I tried a different tac op out that really gelled with me. It's a personal favorite of mine that I was glad to be able to pull out. So I think for me, I found something that worked out great. But I think taking an objective look at what you were doing and whether what you were doing would be better served in like a different manner, like a different tac op, a different strategy, more aggressive, more cagey, and then changing for that will work better for you. So it's
what
not,
did you switch over to?
Oh, it was Storm Objectives. It's just Storm Objectives all the time.
The classic Storm Objectives gameplay. Are you sure that Goremongers are not just Jaegers in disguise?
They could be. They might be. They're a little bit taller than Hernkin, which aside from that, I think they're basically identical.
If the Hernkin had robot chicken legs, then that'd be Goremongers.
I really need to try. I need to try implant on Goremongers sometimes. That would go wild, I'm sure.
I don't think they even.
Well, luckily, you got the half damage ploy in melee, just like.
Oh man, what I wouldn't give for a bombast on Goremongers, but I think everybody would love a bombast in their life.
That's true. Yeah,
true. Wait, so Jason, we've heard Matt talk about how he was playing plant beacons, and he didn't really enjoy it because it wasn't really letting him set up for any aggressive plays. What was your experience as a defensively minded Goremongers player who was waiting for turn 3?
Yeah.
What was the game like? What did it feel like when it was working versus not working? Because obviously it sounds like both of you have moved away from playing this kind of cowardly non-corn way of playing where you're like letting your opponent kind of wander around and prep while you're cowardly doing mission objectives and scoring points, because scoring points is not how it works. But walk us through why this didn't work for you. Like, what were the games like?
So, like, people would have like a locked-in way to score points while I'm just trying to stage for turn 3 violence. And then, like, if you're just like sneaking around on turn point 2, you're not storming objectives. You're not, like, you are planting beacons, but that's not good enough. And the opposite of plant beacons is, of course, meat beacons, which is confirm kill, which we're just going to throw out there that's an official thing now. Plant beacons and meat beacons.
Only for corn, guys.
Only for corn. Well, everyone can have meat beacons. Well, especially Farstalker Kid Band. They love their meat beacons.
True.
But yeah, I mean, it just felt like if I was just trying to only plant a couple of beacons in Turning Point 2 and like play the mission, I felt like people could walk all over me and I would have compromise positioning to do that. And like, you need to be just chopping people instead of all that other nonsense.
Okay, so when you were playing defensive for like the turn 3, everyone blows their all 5 CP plus 4 Gore tanks all the way at max. Why didn't that work? Was it because you were giving up all of your scoring opportunities on turn 2 to just not interact with your opponent?
Yep, pretty much exactly that. Because I mean, I had some games that I could even like win, but it would be like a low scoring win. I don't know. It just you gotta. I agree with like turn 1 violence is the way to go if you can pull it off.
No safe spot, especially if your opponent thinks that they're safe, then you got to make it unsafe, right? That's like the favorite strategy. So. Mostly on the alpha strikes. Sometimes you get a couple fun little bonus charges if your opponents aren't paying super attention to where the board state is at. But as we get to better and better opponents, how are we adapting our strategies to interact with those opponents? Because at this point, Matt, you've been talking about playing a little bit on the internet, so I assume TTS, probably not as many in real life. What are people doing, or are you still getting your opponents who are moving up 6 inches and not asking a single question and getting turn 1 alpha struck?
Yeah, so I've been kind of scrimming against a familiar group of people. I have a good friend of mine who picked up the game recently, and he's gone from barely knowing how to play to being one of the scariest Blades of Cain players that I've been up against. And he's come up with an interesting tech in that I normally like to choose which side that I'm on so that I can place equipment to try to block like razor wires going down. So I can have like a ladder right next to where somebody would want to put a razor wire in a choke point. As a result of that, whenever I do my scout dash, I have to dash my model before he would be able to place or whatever his scouting option was. So he would normally wait until I've dashed whatever model I'm going to do, so I can kind of like show my hand at who is going to be the alpha striker. And then he'll put like a mine or a razor wire or something kind of in the way of that strike, and can kind of like better read where the aggression is going to come in, which I think that's sort of my biggest tip to anybody who would be on the receiving end of this is it's kind of impossible to hide who is going to be the chosen of the 8. So if you can sort of predict the route that they're going to go and then throw something in the way, whether it's like a Kasserkin mine or a razor wire or even just like a guardsman that you don't like very much and you can just kind of have them take the hit, that takes a lot of oomph out of the strike.
Yeah, I mean, if you know something is going to happen, make sure it happens in the most advantageous way possible. You know, for as much as I've watched people try to avoid a Pathfinder alpha strike on turn 1, you can't do it. So just make sure that it only hits one thing. And in this case, for the Blood Herald, just make sure he kills one dork standing out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I can take it from me, somebody who's been eating Warp Coven alpha strikes for months at this point. At some point, you can't prevent it. You just have to make it not hurt very much and make them have to pay for it. So you can try to run from it, but it's normally better if you make them strike you in the way that you want them to, and then you can slap them back afterwards. And a lot of teams, I would say most teams, have some way of making that happen.
And Space Marines and Goremongers are also one of those teams that can also make it happen in a nice way. Because most of the time, those aggressive actions are shooting actions because there's no reason to give your opponent a charging action, right? Because that would just be on its face ridiculous. Why would you ever move within range to get charged, right? So everyone is always moving and shooting, which is, you can just measure 8 inches out from any of your opponent's forward pieces and know that's not where they're going to be able to shoot. Or if they have an APL, then it's an 11-inch range, and you could just know that. So that's the same game plan I have when I play against Tempestus Aquilons. They just measure out 17 inches from the back of the board and just don't move past it. Because that is as far as they're going to be able to shoot you on turning point 2, basically.
I think the advantages I've seen on Goremongers have come from people just sort of not knowing exactly what the ranges are, despite me trying to like over communicate, like, hey, if you get to here, I think I would be able to hit you. It can really throw people off to see the like 8-inch move and then a dash and then a shoot when they're expecting it to be a melee team. So I think this is one of those where the more that people see this across the board from them, the more they'll know what to do, and it'll turn into the Aquilons or the Pathfinder's Alpha Strike, where it's like, all right, I just need to pull out a ruler and not cross the bright red line here.
Hey, everybody. Here doing our own little personal ad read for our respective tournaments. The New York Open, October 18-19, one of the last golden tickets before the actual World Championships of Warhammer. And Jason's got the Renegade Open.
Renegade Open hopping in right after that, which is going to be maybe the first golden ticket event for the 2026 season in just outside of Minneapolis, pretty close to the airport, November 22 and 23 with a golden ticket.
Yeah, tickets are up on sale now at ny-open.com, and Renegade Open, you'll get tickets up when you get them up, and links will be in the show notes when it comes up. All right, so you've learned a lot about these tournaments. You have the strategy on the Goremongers. How has the gameplay changed from beginning to now? Like, if you were to take Goremongers to Worlds, which, as far as I can tell, you're going to Worlds, are you going to bring Goremongers? If you are going to bring Goremongers, like what are you expecting that you're going to be able to do with the Goremongers that people haven't seen before outside of these alpha strikes?
Well, that's part of my concern is I'm worried by the time Worlds comes around, everybody's going to figure them out. Everybody's going to have their tech piece. Maybe we're going to find out portable barricades are really good against Goremongers. I'm making things up, but I get the sinking feeling that there is some secret sauce that'll keep Goremongers towards the bottom. So for now, I'm focusing on what happened in the next couple months. But I think that the Alpha Strike is a powerful tool that will just be something that people have to play around rather than something people get punished by. And playing as Goremongers will then become like bluffing or counter bluffing Alpha Strikes, and then trying to have that set up for like a plant beacon play style or whatever else may be the case.
All right. Well, then we're getting to the fun part of the overall structure, which is, what are your good matchups? What are your bad matchups? Especially now that you've played it a little bit, because I'm sure that there were a lot of assumptions when you first started playing the team as ostensibly a melee elf team. Like this was basically an human-sized elf team. They got 10 wounds to the 8. They don't got any armor saves, but they move fast, they shoot fast, they fight fast. They don't shoot that good, unlike elves, but they do all the other stuff. So they have a matchup spread. You've played it a bunch. You've gone to tournaments. Where do you feel like their current strong points are versus their weak points?
First off, how dare you? This is not an elf team.
They are elf. They are elf by any other name.
I will die on this hill. They are not an elf team. I'm livid right now.
They're the counter elf team.
I'll let that slide. All to say, they're great. I actually happen to think one of their better matchups are elites. When I first started playing the team, when it came out, I was playing into like Nemesis Claw a lot. There were a lot of Plague Marine players and a lot of Legionary players in our area that I would keep bumping into. And all the folks that I'd been talking to said, "Oh, this must be one of your toughest matchups." And I'm just getting these Alpha Strikes off and killing Marines, turning point 1 and turning point 2. It's like I kind of feel like I'm in the driver's seat all game. Like I get to just wait until the end of their activations, and then I kind of do whatever I want. What I've really been struggling into have been Blades of Cain has been really difficult. They just have so many interesting tricks to get around the things that Goremongers try to do. Between the Howling Banshee, like crit strike and then fall back and shoot. That's a pretty powerful way to just one tap a Goremonger in one activation. Having 2 operatives that can double shoot, meaning the Exarch and then whoever pays the command point to do it, which could optionally be with crack grenades for some reason. Just getting double cracked by one operative is gross, and I wouldn't recommend it. So Blades of Cain has surprisingly been one of my tougher matchups. I think Inquisition has also been very difficult. Stacking up a Exaction Shield with a Servo Skull that does -1 attack dice is a very, very difficult shell to crack. And you really need to find different ways to get around those choke points. And if the Inquisition player does that well, then you are kind of just stuck in one spot and can't get around to storm those beautiful objectives, So it can be a bit of a problem. A lot of these like hyper cagey teams that want to fixate on contained playstyles like Exaction, Ratlings are another good example that end up being sort of the more so the immovable object than we are the unstoppable force. So it can just be very difficult to break through these things.
I think that's probably on Goremongers being able to do a 10 or 11-inch move and a shooting action at the end, right? So as much as the Ratlings and the Exaction Squad can set up the obstacle course from hell, you can still find a way to get the first action first, and that first action does a lot of work on being able to recover tempo because you aren't going to be able to get killed in one activation, and you're really coasting off of that core concept of you can set up as many obstacles as you want, but as long as 8 guys tap you first and you can never one-shot kill me, the activation advantage is basically always 2 to 1.
Yeah, I think it is situations where my attempt as a Goremongers player to like make an attack, like if I'm a Goremonger running at a Hunter Clade and I'm into this like just horrific situation where I've got 3 attacks, I'm hitting on 4s and I don't get rerolls, and I'm up against a 10 wound operative with a power sword, there's a very good chance I get maybe one hit, and then I just get mauled by a power weapon. Which that's not even I get the first strike, so I get the advantage. That's I get the first strike, and I'm worse than I was at the start of the activation. And Hunterclade can do that, Inquisition can do that, Exaction can do that. And those are the teams that are scary to look out for.
I guess Felgor also in some sense, right? Because you kill them, they don't quite die, and then they can always kill you on the crackback.
It feels so reminiscent of like the Felgor versus Gellerpox matchup, where nobody actually wants to melee because melee is where the scary stuff is. So you just have
melee
these
is where probability goes to die, and the dice are just what they are. It's like the old Felgor versus Exaction Squad matchup where you're like, I actually don't know what's going to happen. The odds are literally just we roll 4 dice on both sides and we pray.
Yep. I'm going to have all my brutal weapons. You're just going to see if you could roll crits, and we'll just see what happens. Which
obviously is a very competitively minded player. That's not where you want your game plan to be. You want your game plan to be on, I have an Alpha Strike. I have this safe way to approach into my opponents. I've got this Blood Herald who can always have 3 APL and always have an extra inch of movement and always 4 attacks on 2s coming up and tagging you. That's like what you want. Whereas going into melee against Exaction and Inquisition Squad, Gellerpox at this point, because Gellerpox still have their -1 to hit on the big hulks, is just not a good place to be.
Yep,
but
exactly
that's what
right.
Shooting is for. And it sounds like both of you have basically narrowed in on Goremonger shooting is really good at basically breaking up the clumps and giving you a little bit of opening to go apply your stats in more spots. But I'd be remiss if we don't talk about Jason's favorite thing as far as gameplay tactics go, and that's to skew hard in a certain direction. And if there was ever a team to talk about the generic warrior option, I would hate to not bring up 7 aspirants, because as much as we talk about the Inquisition Squad and the Ratlings and all these other guys being annoying, what about 7 aspirants just ignoring all of the math?
Yeah, I think
is it
fully
good?
Cooks hordes.
Is it good? Have you guys played the full 7 aspirants?
I have tweaked it. I'm only willing to do 6 because the Inciter is a must. I'm like, take the Blood Herald, the Inciter, and 6 aspirants, and I've literally like that is like my go-to plenty of times. If someone outnumbers me, that's what I'm going to do. The big axe, because the command point, the extra damage, the brutal, the damage reduction, is sometimes just not as good as another angle of chain lightning charging people. Like the chain lightning charge, like anytime it goes off, it has the potential to just like break the game wide open. And if you have 6 operatives that can do that, the opponent is never going to get through a game without being chain lightning charged in a huge and meaningful way. That's even true against like elites. Like you knock someone down to like 4 HP, you run over there, you kill them, you tag someone else, you do like 6 more damage to them. And like the Inciter, I think has way better math than everyone. Because you are ceaseless for free, just baked in, devastating 1 and rending. And you pretty much just run around, and your like chip damage is like usually like 6 damage against even like power armor. So you'll just like fully kill things that aren't power armor, and you do like amount of damage against power armor, and it also makes them bleed. And then you can use that to rake them, and then that does like an extra D3 damage. And then you fight them again with your ceaseless pistols in melee. And if they, like, you might just kill them. And if you don't and they kill you, like if you just roll bad, or if you run into Inquisition, -1 attack, and like whatever, you just explode when you die. And then you kill them anyways. Yeah, that's like the main thing to break through what looks like hopeless math. This was like my concept against Plague Marines, where it's like the Inciter, people will be like, oh, your shooting is bad. I'm like, okay, the Inciter does 7 damage to a Plague Marine because it's just damage mitigation. And then when you do hit them, you rake, and if your dice go bad, you explode, and then it's just unavoidable. You just kill them every time, and it's craziness.
Yep.
These damn melee teams with their explode on death ploys. I've heard these Chaos Cult players, these Gellerpox players, and now the Goremonger players. Come on, guys. You guys got to have some other game plan outside of blowing up on death. You can't be Sanctifiers. You got to be better than Sanctifiers.
I realize that over half of the teams that I've played have some sort of blow up on death ploy. It's so good. I've done exactly as you have, Jason. It's like the bespoke kill an icon bearer on Plague Marines for me is you send the Insider in, you shoot him, you hunt for blood and rake with that, and then fight. You maybe get like 2 hits in, and then you die, and then you blow up, and it's normally enough to kill an icon bearer. It's just nasty stuff. But I would never give up the opportunity to talk about a SKU list. 7 aspirants, I think, is wild. I don't think you ever do 7 aspirants.
Okay, what about 6?
I love a SKU list. 7 is too much for me. I could enjoy a 6.
Who are you not leaving home without? Is it the Insider, just like Jason? Or you not giving up the Skull Taker? You know what's going on over here on this 4, 5 to 7 aspirant list?
I think if I'm having a nice casual Sunday and I just want to roll some dice, I'll do 6 aspirants. I'll probably follow the Jason method and leave the Skull Cleaner at home because it's just thunder and lightning and oh so frightening. But I think more seriously, and this is like my actual real game plan, is that I normally have Blood Herald, Skull Claimer, and Insider as required operatives. And then I normally take 5 aspirants and then view all the specialists as like tech pieces for different matchups or different scenarios. So like my default is normally 5 aspirants. And then if I think the scenario merits it, then I'll splash in more of the specialists.
Oh, so you're not even doing all specialists most of the time. You're doing a lot of aspirants. I don't think we did that when we played. Did you?
I ran a Stalker because we were on Volcus. But besides that, I dropped the Impaler and I dropped the Blood Herald, I think, when we played. So I think that was a 4 aspirants game. And
I wasn't going to
on
the Impaler anyways.
I am a disliker of the Blood Taker. Much like the Plant Beacons thing, I don't want to spend actions prepping for other things. I don't want to spend actions planting beacons. I want to spend actions charging things and fighting things. I don't want my Blood Taker afraid of killing something in the back, just like trembling, holding the Bloody Cadaver. I want to give the Bloody Cadaver to like the leader, and then just like missile in another aspirant. So I don't think that's like great advice for everybody, but if you haven't tried dropping the Blood Taker, try it and see if that just kind of gives you an extra little piston of power for you.
Yeah, it's super, super true because like the key to success on the team is like getting the threat saturation right. And if you have a weak link in your threat saturation, thing kind of falls apart.
Yeah. 8 operatives is wider than a lot of elite teams, but it's still not wide enough that you can have somebody just standing in the back, not really doing anything. Unless the mission's like loot or something where you kind of have to anyways. I normally don't take the Blood Taker just because I feel like I start falling behind on momentum.
You've got a rolling window of effectiveness, and that rolling window requires all 8 of those guys to at least threaten a Marine.
Exactly right.
Because as we've talked about, the casual Horde matchup is relatively easy. You know, like the Brood Brothers that have been taking over the meta in large part, you know, floating around at 60% win rates on the week-to-week stat show that me and Jason do on our Patreon. They don't really have a good plan against 6 aspirants, right?
As far as I know, not really.
Have you played it on TTS? Because I feel like Brood Brothers are kind of a reasonably popular middle upper tier skill team because people think they can outthink all of their opponents' plays, but when it comes to Gellerpox and it comes to Goremongers, the outthinking is actually no thinking because you just move up and just cruise through all of the 7 wound operatives, right?
I technically have not played against Brood Brothers with them, so I shouldn't talk much. What I will say is that I did have
do it for the content.
What I will say is that I had originally found a match where I was going to play Brood Brothers, and then my opponent said, after I told them I was going to play Goremongers, they canceled the match. So I might have just been circumstance, I don't know, but they just said they didn't want to play it. So maybe there's tech there that I just don't know about, but I choose to presume that it's just because Goremongers are just that good.
Goremongers do feel particularly well suited for any of the current Horde teams. As much as I like Pathfinders floating around, they really don't have a good game plan against Goremongers, just because the best game plan is actually to stand on top of Vantage and stand enough operatives in a circle so the Goremongers cannot land in the middle, to just fully body block. That is probably the current best plan, just because, just like Felgor, Goremongers 2-tap you, and they're impossible to kill in one activation, which means that all of the strengths of the primary shooting teams is pretty rough. And Inquisition agents, they have a good front line, which is kind of annoying because you can have 2 separate -1 attack bubbles around your leader and your little tome skull. And if you're hiding behind Exaction Squad shields, which you're allowed 2 of, there are 2 spots on the map that you cannot interact with as a Goremonger. Especially because the dude with the medic is just running around like tapping the dudes with some extra juice, unless you jump over them.
Well, you also shouldn't ignore that there's a configuration of Inquisition where you get 5 points. That's right, 5 Sisters of Silence, all carrying power weapons, 3 up saves.
That's true. Everyone discounts the 4 attacks on 3s, 4/6, lethal 5, ceaseless Sisters as just a melee brick, because everyone is too busy trying to out-tech their opponents. But what if you just brutalize your opponent and ignore all the psychic abilities that these silly Warp Coven players are firing off at you? And these Plague Marines, all sorts of things. But no one does it. I've never seen it played a single time. The only time that people talk about them is as a threat for when the players play Warp Coven. They're like, I'm going to play Warp Coven. Oh, what if I had Sisters? They're like, well, maybe I don't want to play Warp Coven, even though that's coward stuff.
I did have a tournament last edition where I was playing Talons, and I played against an excellent Warp Coven player, and I brought 10 Sisters. And the color draining from his face as he realized that his melee weapons didn't work, and none of his abilities worked. He's like, oh, so I just don't do anything. Like I'm sad to think, but I think he told me it was the least fun he's ever had playing Kill Team. It's like, oh, buddy, it's just kind of the square peg round hole kind of situation.
Yeah. It is definitely one of those fun things that I feel like people just undervalue. I think people just undervalue the stat sticks of 5 power swords with ceaseless that all kind of cruise around with 3 up saves. But that's maybe just me as a stats person. Because I've never seen someone do it, and I've never seen someone strong enough emotionally to push through with it.
I mean, I've got some unpainted Inquisition, and Lord knows I've got some Sisters of Silence. So that might be me. Maybe that's what I bring to Worlds, is going to be Inquisition with only Sisters of Silence skew.
Truly, the emotional damage that you would inflict upon anyone you beat would be absolutely catastrophic, especially because there's going to be a non-zero number of people with psychic abilities. Because there's going to be Void Dancer players still, because as we know now, Worlds is still going to be played with every single team. So we're going to have like 40 some odd teams that I'm going to have to know off like the back of my hand at World, which is going to be great.
We're all excited for you. Although I'm now more seriously considering it, because at Worlds, I think I played against Warp Coven 4 times of my 10 matches. So just having any manner to not repeat that experience or have it be a little more palatable seems
Warp
pretty
Coven
tempting.
will be gone by the time we get to Worlds this time around. They've been hit so many times. They're clearly not a playable team anymore, even if the stats say they're still a 65% win rate team.
Hang on, let me pull up this stats email that I get every week from this Patreon that I'm on.
Yeah, Warp Coven, still pretty playable. Surprise, surprise. All right, so we walked us through Goremongers with a whole bunch of tangents at the beginning, talking about Plague Marines, Agents of Death on mobile, all sorts of crazy stuff. And then talked a little bit about Goremongers and how playing them aggressively has gotten both of you quite a bit more value than playing the defensive, cowardly, recon game plan that just scores 9 points, but gets nothing on kill up, nothing on tack up, because ultimately no blood tank equals big sad.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Getting through a bunch of games, and now you guys are playing with Alpha Strikes, and with the Alpha Strikes kicking the Hornet's Nest, you've got your second line, which is the line that is ostensibly there to just tease your opponent, because your opponent's like, well, if you're going to Alpha Strike with those, that's not good, so I don't like that, so I'm going to have to go shoot you first. And that means that your back line can swing out and go tap those people. kill those guys that came up to shoot your front line, and then the front line goes up and heals, and then runs into where your opponent's midline was supposed to be. And that's worked out very well for you guys. Obviously, there's still some bad matchups. And there's lots of things that you can do around those bad matchups. But anything else you guys wanted to add on before we split for the night? Because I think this Goremongers Learn to Master is pretty fun. Matt, if you wanted to call out any local tournaments, I know you do the Kill Team New York League out here in New York City, and there's a couple other things going on in the background with the Kill Team New York League, and also Worlds is on around the corner. What kind of tournaments you coming up to, what kind of practice you're expecting?
Yeah, I mean, so much going on. You're right that I do sort of the ancillary to the wonderful things that happen in Brooklyn. I help run some tournaments out in Manhattan. That we got our next one coming up in a couple weeks. So if you're in the area and interested, feel free to swing by to Hex & Co. Beyond that, we've got our KTNY League. We've got so many incredible players, not just in the city, but in the region in general. Like Tri-State region has some awesome people. There's some great players in Jersey. I played some great people from upstate. Like it's an incredibly competitive, awesome place that I feel lucky to be in. I actually learned to play Kill Team when I lived in DC. And those people are awesome too. I'm going to be going to Nova. That's like my next big thing that I'm trying to get ready for. I'm super excited to see all the old haunts again. And if you're there,
you gonna be doing Goremongers when you go to Nova, huh?
Oh, I don't know. Unironically, I will probably pick like 2 hours before the deadline. Might be Goremongers, might be Little Robot Men. We'll see.
Yeah, Battleclade clearly, definitely in range of playing, Goremongers and this hyper aggressive gameplay, right?
Well, they're just so similar, like they just have so much in common. We'll see. But getting ready for Nova. If anybody is out there and wants to say hello, please do. Are either of you two going to Nova?
I will be out. I'll be at the World Team Championship helping Linwet and a couple other people run the World Team Championship, 5-man teams. We'll see how that goes. I'll be watching the events of Nova just because we've got a lot of friends going between you and Can You Roll a Crit and all the people of Plasma Spam in the DC area. It's definitely going to be one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, I won't make it. I'm going to be working that weekend. I work pretty much every weekend in the summer.
Fair enough. Well, we'll do the best we can on your behalf. And then I'm guessing the three of us will all be in the same place for NYO in October.
It does sound to be the case.
Yep.
Well, I'd be astonished if you weren't here, Travis.
I'm planning to be there. I got my ticket. A couple people from Minnesota heading up. Pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
And then
and also Jason, the Renegade Open after Worlds,
the Renegade
the first
Open
tournament of the post-rotation season. It'll be post-classification, so that'll be a big one.
That will be a big one.
Both of those will have links to the tickets in our show notes. So for anyone who wants to hang out with me or Jason or Matt, you know where we'll be at least Nova, New York Open, and Renegade. And if you make it out to Worlds for Atlanta, come find us.
And of course, to all the listeners who made it all the way this far, thank you.